Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Curious Geographer. New term, new schedule, super exciting, and thank you for joining us today. Please say hi in the comments if you haven't already. Just before we start, there is a little QR code here, which also shows you the live events for this term. So we're going to be talking to so many universities. So every other week, we'll be talking to universities. And the week in between, we'll be doing live interviews which link to your course topics, NEAs, if you're in year 13 and doing them in fieldwork. So lots of things to kind of keep you interested. And they'll be every Tuesday at 5 p.m. So today we're very excited, and our first university is Oxford University. And so we are going to be joined by Professor Gillian Rose and also a student, Nathan, who is going into his second year. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to ask Professor Gillian Rose to introduce herself and tell you a bit about why she thinks you should study geography at Oxford. We are going to have time for Q&A at the end once we've talked about a few things. But if you do have any other questions, please write them in the comments and we'll try and get over to them as well. So Professor Gillian Rose, please introduce yourself to us and tell us a bit about why you think students should study geography and study it at Oxford.
Hi, Ellie. Hello. Thank you for the invitation for doing this. Hi, everyone. My name is Gillian Rose. I'm a professor of human geography in the School of Geography and the Environment at Oxford. I'm also the head of the department. I've been doing that for a year. It's been quite an interesting year, to say. I'm a cultural geographer, so I'm interested in the ways in which people bring different kind of cultural values, interpretations, judgments, beliefs to how they relate to spaces, places, landscapes. And in my more recent work, I've actually been particularly interested in how digital technologies start to shift those sorts of relationships that we have with the kind of everyday places that we inhabit through things like smartphone apps, Google Maps, cities collecting big data to run traffic, all sorts of stuff. I'll tell you a little bit about why I think geography is so amazing at Oxford, but very happy to take any kind of questions of any kind that you might want to pose to me. I know Oxford has a very particular reputation and some particular issues that we're trying to engage with. But here's my pitch anyway. So some of why I study geography at Oxford is simply why geography itself is such an amazing subject. And I probably don't need to say very much to this audience about that. But I do think there's something that many of my colleagues really focus on, which is geography is a discipline which brings together the kind of hard sciences with the social sciences. And I think that mix of both thinking about how the sort of physical world works and then how social, economic, political processes work and how they interact really deeply embedded with each other. I think geography is pretty much the only academic discipline that really, centres full on that intersection. And so many of the world's major problems now are absolutely, also about, physical resources, the climate crisis clearly, but water, disease, so on, food security, they all sit precisely at that junction. And so geography, fantastic subject for getting to grips with those problems from a really multidimensional perspective. I think geography also gives you a really amazing skill set. And actually, since I've become head of department, we've worked quite hard to try and expand the skill set that we offer to our undergraduates. So everything from, essay writing, oral communication skills. We're increasing our skills around data science, geographical information systems, and so on. So you get a really great set of skills from doing a geography degree. And this starts to move a little bit more into why Oxford, because that clearly makes you very attractive to a really wide range of employers. So if you're not really sure what you want to do at university or indeed what you want to do with your life, geography is a great place to start because you get exposed to a really wide range of issues. You get that really broad skill set. And then you can also think about a really wide range of careers to follow. And Oxford, I have to say, has the most amazing set of support to let you find your career. So there's a great careers service, but there's also a fantastic internship program, which is just like global. It works with Oxford's immense, graduate community. So you can be, really high level organizations for a temporary internship through the university. And we also, I don't know if this might appeal to some with you, we also have an innovation hub. So if any of you fancy yourselves as the next, I don't know, I hope Actually, personally, I hope none of you do think of yourself as a Mark Zuckerberg. I don't think he's a particularly great role model personally, but the next brilliant digital startup, we have an innovation startup hub directly for undergraduates to get you started on that road, if that's something you think you're interested in. It was opened by the guy who heads up Apple. So that gives you a sense of the scale and the reach that Oxford really, I think, is unique in being able to offer you in terms of careers. And my final point is that in terms of what you'll learn when you're here, the actual geography programme, a lot of our teaching is really at that, as I say, that intersection of the kind of social with the kind of science and the environmental. I think Nathan might say a bit more about that later on. But I think the thing that strikes me is that when you come to Oxford, you get really close-up teaching, often in really small groups in your college. There'll be you, maybe one other student, and a lecturer. So you get really in-depth engagement with what that lecturer eventually in your second and third years is researching. And we have got world-leading researchers on amazing projects, how the global financial system is reconfiguring after the 2008 crash. Somebody tracking plastic circulation globally in order to try and figure out where exactly we can intervene to stop plastic pollution. One other example, we have 6 of my colleagues write parts of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, their reports, the IPCC. We have IPCC authors you can be, being taught by and learning from. So I think that level of kind of research is outstanding, really exciting. I'm constantly amazed by what my colleagues are doing, and you get that as an undergraduate as well. So that's my pitch for why geography at Oxford is a particularly exciting programme to study for 3 years.
Super, thank you, Professor. And we will also, as you can see, there's actually 3 of us on screen. So we're going to be talking to Nathan, who's a student, but also, as you kind of said, this is an opportunity that even if you're on the edge of applying and you've got questions, please do use this opportunity to ask questions, because we're live here with the head of department and also a student as well. So it's a really good place just for you to ask any questions that you have. So Nathan, if you could please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your experience of studying geography at Oxford.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ellie. Yes. So I'm Nathan Lawson, and I'm going into my second year in Oxford. I'm also the president of the Oxford Climate Society, which is one of the largest student-led societies within the university. And of course, as you can is indicated by the name, we focus on climate change and environmentalism. But just to say a little bit about geography and specifically geography at Oxford and why I chose it. So to distinguish, firstly, geography is probably one of the best subjects to study if you have so many interests that you can't pick one. I think geography sort of covers so many different subjects within it, or so many different disciplines within geography, ranging from human to physical, that it's one of the best options for you. And throughout my first year, you sort of get put into either the category of a human geographer or a physical. I can certainly say that I'm tending towards the more Gillian will like me saying this, tending towards the more human side of things, particularly financial geography and Marxist geographies, but also feminist geographies as well. And one thing I would say about the step between university and A levels is that it's actually so much more diverse, particularly on the syllabus side of things, because a lot of the topics that I was introduced in my first year, I didn't even know that was included within geographical knowledge or geographical research, such as the ones I've just mentioned. And on the physical side, just to do justice to that side as well, again, you can study climatology, so of course very relevant for my society, also geology, and lastly ecology. But the most important thing that I learned from my first year on the physical geography side was the interactions between all these different disciplines. They're not taught as separate entities, but rather you're taught the interlinkages between each of them. And then perhaps my favorite interlinkage is that between physical geography and human geography. So particularly I'm interested in how do humans impact the environment or the planet. And I think geography is one of the best places to start with that. I think I'll leave it there.
Super, thanks. And there's actually some questions already come through. So we are going to, Sophia's just asked a question about the course, which we will talk about, and we'll give you an overview in a second as well. But first of all, we decided to hold this interview early because we didn't know, because we wanted to kind of catch students who might be on the edge of whether or not to apply. And we wanted to talk about particularly students who might not think Oxford is the right place for them, not sure. So we're going to start with Gillian first. Gillian, what advice would you give to students who, if they are on the edge of applying, and what advice would you give?
So if you're on the edge of applying, I would say go for it. You know, in a sense, what have you got to lose? And actually, I think my department has a lot to gain from just inviting as wide a range of students to come and give us a chance. Really, I think as a teacher, I learn huge amounts from the students I teach. I've talked about what you will learn coming to Oxford, but it works the other way around as well. So do come. We'd love to meet you. Oxford is sort of unashamedly academic. So in terms of applying and thinking about how to prepare to apply, I would say it's a lot about kind of thinking and just about trying to develop your own sort of ideas about the world, perhaps a bit beyond your A-level or IB curriculum. And I think what Nathan said earlier about the difference between university geography and school geography is relevant here, because university geography is very diverse. I'm sure you're looking at different undergraduate programs, and you'll see different specialist topics across the piece. It's a very diverse discipline. So focus on what really interests you, what motivates you. Is it climate change, or is it, I don't know, YouTube influencers? Is it a particular kind of music? Is it, I don't know, photography, sport, whatever? And try and work through that, build it, think about it, maybe think about it geographically, think about other aspects, other ways in which you can understand it and explore it. I think we're going to say a little bit more about the interview process perhaps a bit later on in the conversation, and I can elaborate a bit more then. But I would say, it's an extraordinary place, Oxford. I know it has an elitist reputation. I think that's partly deserved, but actually it's a lot more diverse when you get here than you might think from the outside. So I would say give it a go, give us a chance, and go for it.
And Nathan, how about you? What would you say to someone who is on the edge of applying?
So just to echo Gillian's points, that just think of it you've got 5 applications, right, for university on your UCAS. So I don't see any harm in adding one called Oxford on it, right? So that's the main thing. But then also, like I said at the beginning, if you have such a wide variety of interests, it's probably one of the best subjects for you, because there's so many. I know we're going to talk about modules later, but there's so much options in the 2nd and 3rd year, and the opportunity also to travel. But maybe I'll save that for later questions about the course.
And sorry, I just put myself on mute. Gillian, we've already had a question saying how much flexibility is the course, or what is the split between human and physical geography? So please, could you tell us a bit about the structure at Oxford? So we know what students will be studying, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've got a graphic, a slide for me to talk through. So the degree obviously runs over 3 years. You're only actually assessed at the end of your 1st year and at the end of your 3rd year. But the slide gives a very sort of minimal overview, and if you go onto our website, you'll get a lot more detail about the content of the individual courses. I would say also our Geography Society has got a really nice alternative prospectus, which gives you a sort of student's view of the courses as well. So you might find that a bit more of a perhaps a less sort of formal account of what the courses are. So year 1, we've got 4 compulsory courses actually. So there's no choice, and I think that's partly because we do see the strength of the discipline as this cross-disciplinary wide subject, and we sort of make you do that in your 1st year. So those 4 courses, basically there's a human one, there's a physical one, there's one on research methods, so how you make data, make evidence to answer research questions. And then there's one called Controversies, which is where we ask you to think about some geographical controversy, but particularly to think about, again, what kinds of evidence has been used to kind of form that sort of debate. And some of those controversies are physical, some are human. The one I put on the list was actually the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and what kind of knowledges that would produce about kind of urban geographies, about geographies of race and racism, geographies of policing, and so on and so forth. So that's just an example. Second year, there's a bit of choice. But again, we try to keep a kind of core going so that we're building up a sort of sense of what geography is and its particular approach. So geographical thought is our core course, and I think that's pretty common. Most undergraduate programs will have a core course on kind of concepts, philosophies, histories, practices, as we've subtitled it there. Then you do 2 out of 3 foundation courses, and again, there's a human one, there's a physical one, and then there's an environmental course in between, which looks at things like conservation, environmental policy making, and so on. So at that point, you can start to lean towards perhaps the human or the physical, but we're still expecting everybody to engage with those environmental questions. You get a field trip in your second year. You get to do one option, which is like a specialist course, usually based around somebody's research. And you also start to think about your dissertation, which is quite a large piece of independent research we expect you to do. And you work through that and you finish it, as you can see, in your third year. You spend your summer holidays at the end of year 2 gathering the data, and you write it up in the third year. And then the options, let's say you've got 1 in year 2, 2 in year 3, and I've just listed some of them there just to give you a flavour of some of the range of topics. But if you go onto our website, you'll have a fuller list, and you'll be able to get a little bit more detail about the content. But you can see, they suit people who might want to be doing, in the end, hard science. They suit people who might want to be doing very sort of soft kinds of human cultural geography, and there's plenty of things in between as well. So we think it's a nice course. You get some choice certainly by the end. You can really do the program, hopefully, that the areas that you're really interested in. But there's a spine there that gets you the kind of core understandings that the discipline can deliver. So that's an overview of the course. I don't know if there are any more specific questions anybody would like to ask, or if maybe Nathan wants to come in at this point, maybe flag any particular parts of the programme that you found particularly enjoyable.
Yep. So one thing that I'd implore all students to look at, because again, it's sort of a thing that you don't really get taught at A-level, or you don't really know about, but if you look at the geographical controversies section of the course, that was hands down one of my favourite. And Gillian, just to double check, there is parts on the website that students can go to look at that, right?
Yeah.
But just an example of some of the topics that I found really interesting. We looked at the ideas of space and place, but there's a statue, obviously that's very topical at the moment. One of Cecil Rhodes, actually, specifically in one of the colleges in Oxford, and we basically debated amongst students, and we actually had to present as well. About the pros and not the pros and cons, the twos and the fours and the against of those, but also 12 years to avert climate catastrophe, drone warfare, and the ethics of killing at a distance. It's just, honestly, you wouldn't think of this at A-level, so I just implore you to look at that specifically.
And there was a question, Nathan, if you wouldn't mind answering this,
Yep.
which I think you've kind of answered through the questions anyway, but from Sophia, I'll just read out the question. It says, how much flexibility do you have over the course? And we've kind of looked at the structure, and we see that the first year is a bit more predetermined. But if you prefer human geography, which we know you might be more inclined towards at the moment, how much control do you have for doing kind of that aspect of the subject?
Brilliant. Well, I've only just done my first year, which was the rigid part of the course, which I didn't have any choice over. So perhaps Gillian, because you know how the second and third years are taught, you could answer that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So no choice in the first year, and I've explained our reasons for that. By the second year, you could do a strongly human track for sure, and the way that you would do that is that geographical thought has plenty of sort of more human oriented sort of histories and ideas about human geography in it. the 2 out of the 3 foundation courses, you would do the human geography one, then you would have to do the environmental geography one as well, because there are only 3, and then you ignore the physical. But I think the environmental geography one, as I say, we think it's a crucial thing we should all, learn and know about. And certainly as a human geographer, you could absolutely approach it through being interested in the kind of economics, the politics, the social, cultural aspects of the environment. And I think I should say, I often do hit, students often arrive thinking that they prefer one kind of geography. And then when they start to listen to the others, actually they go, maybe I'm rethinking what I'm really interested in here. So I think keeping that range, can be quite useful. Certainly in terms of your dissertation and the field trip and then the 3 options, you could do that entirely human geography. We have enough options to enable you to do that. You could also, similarly, with the exception of the environmental geography track, do an entirely physical geography path through the programme as well, by choosing a particular dissertation topic and by choosing your options as well.
And looking at the questions which are flooding in, so we're going to try and keep track of them and maybe just insert them as we're talking. And then there's a question from Candice saying, hello, I'm applying to Oxford this year and was wondering whether there's a strong basis on science and maths throughout. Candice, maybe you might want to write if you are doing science and maths, because maybe that might be useful for this question as well. But it says, have a lot of students studied science and maths at A level? So maybe a question saying, how important is science and maths? Do you need to be really strong in it, or is it open for those who aren't as strong on science and maths?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we are open to people with different strengths and skills, and I think actually it's really important that we are, because as I say, I think if you're learning from people's different life experiences, but also the different kind of interests and concerns and talents that everybody brings, then you need a range. Everybody can learn from each other. So no, we don't expect high level math skills. The methods course in the first year does involve doing some statistics, and I do know, speaking also personally as someone who really struggles with maths, doing stats, if you're not mathematically inclined, is perhaps, it may not turn out to be a highlight of your undergraduate career, shall we say, but nonetheless, I think it's pretty important, actually. Let's say in a job interview that you have encountered at some point in your 3 years of training, some sense of what a database is, and done, even tried to have a go at what a little bit of kind of coding might be, or statistical analysis might be. I mean, even if it turned out that actually you were really, not brilliant at it, at least it gives you, it'll give you enough material to say something perhaps sensible in an interview later on. So we don't expect expertise. We do, though, I mean, I should say, we do teach carefully stats, hoping that people will be able to become competent statisticians, even if you've only done maths at GCSE. So, as I say, we try to teach across the range. I wasn't quite sure which direction that question was going in, but for those of you who are fantastic at maths, you can also do very mathematical modelling and coding tracks, particularly through the physical geography, as you move through the programme as well. So again, we've got that wide range of possibilities for you to pursue your own strengths.
Fantastic. So we just had Candice's reply saying she does languages and English, so don't worry about the maths if you do that, because you have lots of strengths.
Don't worry.
But also
my other A levels were art and English, and here so.
Mine was art and maths, lots of art. But then also some students have replied saying they do chemistry and economics. So if you are more maths inclined, then again, it will kind of suit your strengths, and that's the thing that you can pick your pathways. That kind of happens with lots of universities as well. So that sounds fantastic. Okay, so we'll kind of go back to some of the questions, and then as I said, there are lots of questions. I will try and get them answered, because I know that if you've written one, you would obviously like it answered. If we go back to a bit about the application process, if that's okay. So how does the application process work with colleges? And are there geography specialists in each college?
Yeah, great question. So admissions in Oxford is actually, undergraduate admissions is run by the colleges. Which is a little bit frustrating for me as head of department, because it means I don't have any direct sort of control over the process. And certainly the last few weeks, watching the A-level fiasco, it was, I felt very much, out of the loop, really. The colleges were dealing with that. So you apply to the college. Not every college has geography tutors in it. So you should apply to a college that does. There are 14 of those colleges in Oxford, and they're all listed on our website. And I think part of the sort of uniqueness of the Oxford experience is very much, you'll be part of a fairly small cohort in a college, a cohort of students doing all sorts of other subjects. And the kind of community and the kind of experiences and the kind of facilities that the college offers is really quite, I would say, quite critical and sort of central to the Oxford experience. I'm sure Nathan's going to add to this, but check out the list of those 14 colleges and then go to their own college websites. Ideally, of course, I'd say come to an open day if you can. The university is holding another virtual open day on the 18th of September, actually. And there'll be a lot of ways in which at least you can, look at some videos of different colleges and just watch some students talking. So you choose your college and you apply through there. And we do have a process where some students, if the college in the end doesn't feel they can take them, they may pass them on to another college. But it's the college route first and foremost. And as I say, you should choose one that has geographers in. Of those colleges, most of them take between about 4 and 10 geography students each year. So you'll be with a very small group, and then you'll have lots of lectures in the department and kind of groups of maybe 10, 15, 20 students teaching larger groups in the department. And then you'll have much smaller group, really small group teaching in the college. So the college choice is definitely an important part of the application process. But maybe I should turn to Nathan. Perhaps just, I don't know if you want to add anything about college choices, Nathan.
Yes, I've interestingly had the experience of going to two, lucky enough, and essentially, everyone says that it matters a great deal, but I've never met anyone who hates their college so much when they get there. They always, within that, let's say 2 weeks or something like that, they're always boasting that their college is the best. So I really wouldn't worry too much about which college you go to. Maybe just pick one slightly closer to the department, so you can wake up a little bit later before lectures in the morning.
Yes, there is a question, Nathan, if you wouldn't mind answering it, on kind of colleges, saying, do you think someone's experience with geography will vary with their different college? So does it make a difference if there's 4 or 10 people, as Julian said, who are in your college doing geography?
So my college is Jesus College, and they've got one of the larger cohorts where there's nine geographers in it each year that they admit, roughly. And I wouldn't say it influences your experience that much, because the tutorials are still capped, I think, Gillian, correct me if I'm wrong, but a maximum of 3 students, I think. And that's what my tutorials consist of. And then the only slight difference would be that your classes would obviously be slightly larger. But I think it's actually a strength, in my opinion, to have a slightly larger group, because it's more people to make friends with, and also help with difficult essays in particular weeks.
Super. And then just on that, there was like another question just to confirm about tutors from Teddy, saying, are you taught with the same tutors within your college for the 3 years? So are you kind of with those tutors who are from your college?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So maybe I can respond to that. So in the first year, all that teaching in the college will be with the same group of tutors. And then as you move through the programme, you begin to get taught by a wider range of tutors, particularly as in the options. All the teaching we get on your options will be from the academic running that option. So as things get more specialist, you move to a more specialist range of teachers, if you like. But I think, my particular position in my college means I don't actually do undergraduate teaching, but my sense is that part of this sort of college experience is that actually the tutors in the college do really take an awful lot of care, all the pastoral care and the kind of well-being, and that really runs through colleges. And I know people, can end up with really sort of close and long relationships with their professional relationships with their tutors that they've had in college. They invite them to their weddings and all this kind of thing. So you might not get taught by them directly, but they remain a really important sort of central part of your college and your geography experience, even as you move through the 3 years.
And that really is that kind of having those tutors and the colleges is the such unique thing which makes Oxford Oxford when you think about geography, and actually having the ability to have those discussions. That does such a fantastic opportunity, which not every university obviously has. If we can go on to a bit of interviews and maybe myth bunking, there have also still got a few questions coming through about IBs and which I'll try and answer. But if we go through some of these, they might in itself, when you're answering the questions, might come up with the answers for the students who have commented. So how there's just loads of myths about interviews. Like, I hear them as a teacher as well. Students be like, do you know what happens? This is what happens. And what advice would you give to students for the interview process? And also, can you confirm how the interviews are happening this year as well?
Yeah. Well, I'd be quite interested to hear some of the myths, actually, or maybe horrified. I don't quite know. So I'll answer the really easy bit first. So the interviews are usually face to face, and we have thousands and thousands of students coming to Oxford. It's the middle of December for face to face interviews. Not this year. The university took a decision quite early on, actually, in this whole coronavirus saga, that the admissions interviews this year are going to be online. I don't quite know exactly how they're going to manage that. Whether it's going to be Skype or some other. I'm not sure, but it'll be online. So that's to answer that last practical part. Interviews, I would like to hear some of the myths, actually. My version is that what we try our very hardest to do, and I know we all are very aware that interviews are pretty intimidating, actually. They're a bit scary. In fact, I think for some of you are thinking, I'm going to be sitting in a group of just one other student, and there's going to be this world-leading researcher on the other side of town, and I'm meant to do what? I completely sympathise. I had that experience as an undergraduate as well. It is a bit scary, but what we do our very best in the interview process is to try not to scare you. We try to make it a process where we give you an opportunity to show us, how passionate you are about geography. How curious you are about learning new things. I think that's really important. If you come and you kind of give the impression that you know it all already, that's not really what a university degree is about. So that you're curious and that you can think about things and be sort of responsive to things. So I think a lot of interviews, you'll often be asked to react to something, like maybe you'll be given a photograph or a map or a graph. There's often two interviews, one by a physical geographer and one by a human geographer, and it's fine if you think that one of those will be better. You feel stronger in one than the other. They then meet and talk and take immense amount of time, sort of trying to reach the right decisions about offering places to the people we think will benefit most from the degree program that we can offer, and will flourish and do well at it. So I know it's easy for me to say it's an opportunity for you to shine, but that really is how we try to frame it. So maybe I should also say that there's loads of information both on our website and also the university's website. Lots and lots of students talking about the interview process, what it was like for them, the kind of things they were asked. So there's loads of again, hopefully myth-busting resources you can use. Maybe I'll stop there. Maybe Nathan can tell us a bit about his interview, and then maybe if there are specific concerns, myths, I can come back to them.
Yeah, sure. So interview is, or no worries. Okay, yeah. So for anyone at home thinking of applying and who is potentially scared of it, just think of it as an opportunity to talk about a subject that you want to spend the next 3 years of your life studying. Right, 20 minutes or however long they last. They're usually about 20-25 minutes. Is nothing compared to the amount of time that you will be or you have studied geography in the past. So really don't be scared of it in that sense. What Julian mentioned about a lot of people are intimidated, I can definitely sympathise with this. The fact that there's very world-renowned geographers and academics on the other side of the table. Perhaps this is a myth as well. They're not actually out to get you. They really just want to understand how your brain works and how curious you are. And so any myths, I would also like to hear some of them as well. I don't think they're necessarily true.
Cool, thanks. There is one question on the interviews. And actually there's a few on about the exams, because the exams have been cancelled for Oxford and Cambridge, and a few questions have come up on that, saying how what are the admission tutors looking for if they've been cancelled, and is there any other new process in shortlisting for interviews? So is there any advice you could give for students who might have been sitting those exams in normal circumstances, but who aren't doing it this year?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't always used to have a geography entrance exam, actually, and we've you know, it's an interesting issue about whether, you know, whether it enables us to discriminate, you know, between different sorts of students, or maybe, you know, for students who are coming from schools, you know, for whom, you know, sitting in an exam to get into university is just like an extra exam is just really weird, you know, why, whether it actually puts off students. In fact, we potentially, you know, would really want to recruit. So we'll be using, you know, the application process, you know, your personal statement, your predicted grades in the usual way, and I say each college, you know, they have their methods for going through those. I would say that you know, some, I would say especially private schools, you know, have a lot of resource and a lot of experience in crafting very polished personal statements. We also have an awful lot of experience of reading those, and I think many of my colleagues feel reasonably confident that they can discriminate between, you know, somebody who's had perhaps, you know, quite a lot of support putting what looks like a really impressive personal statement together, and maybe somebody who, you know, has clearly been doing it on their own in their bedroom, you know, just on a kind of, I'm really going for this, you know, and I'm just going to do it kind of, you know, I would hope that we, you know, we can see the difference between that. And if there's something, you know, we're not looking for huge amounts of experience in your personal statement. You don't have to have gone on some, you know, round the world expedition or climbed mountains or done, you know, we just want to have a sense of what you're curious about, what you're passionate about, why. It can be as modest and as local and as everyday as you like, but if you've got something interesting to say about it, I think that's what would really catch us in terms of the application process.
Super. And we have actually got lots of questions came through about personal statements. I think maybe because students are kind of just about to be writing them or submitting them. One quick question from a medical student potentially as well, and then another one just about things to include, which you've kind of touched upon as well, saying just why you like geography really and what interests you. There's one from Rebecca saying she's also looking to apply to Oxford, but also applying to 3 other medical schools. So would you want me to send another personal statement? I'm assuming, Becca, that you're applying for medical schools and then obviously applying for geography. I don't even know if that's possible to apply with a different personal statement though through UCAS.
I don't think it is. It's one because it's through UCAS, right? So it's just one personal statement that you send out to all of the ones that you put on your UCAS list. So
however, Nathan, would you like to say, so you might have thought you were going to go down the sciences route when you were at school, potentially.
Yeah.
Not saying we're here to convince you, Rebecca, to do geography, but what do you want to give us your reasons why you did actually end up picking geography, and maybe why you were swayed away? Because I know as a teacher's perspective, a lot of students from my classes stop doing it at GCSE because they go down the STEM subjects, and I feel I lose a lot of good geographers. So someone who's kind of tossing up between maybe going down the sciences because they know that they might get a good job, etc., to go into geography, which might be seen as a little bit more vague. What advice would you give to students for, and why did you really kind of, what's so great about geography for you?
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for asking, because I know unfortunately we do lose a lot of and interested geographers to other subjects because they think it's inferior. But so just to say a little bit about what I did. So I started off actually applying to biology. I did a foundation year in Oxford, and I studied biology for a year. But throughout that year, the reason why I wanted to go to geography was it didn't touch enough on the human elements. And as I mentioned in a previous answer, I'm particularly interested in how humans impact the environment and impact the planet. And so just on the academic side of things and what you actually study when you're at university, that's why I wanted to do geography. And then when we move on to the more things like skills and a lot of the myths that I know a lot of families put on their children in terms of persuading them which subjects to study. Geography is actually one of the most relevant, literally one of the most relevant subjects in the 21st century. As Gillian mentioned, you get taught in statistics, you get opportunity also to code, GIS, geographical information systems you get taught. These are things that you're not necessarily exposed to, or even parents of older generations don't necessarily know are taught within the geography, a geography degree. And so I just encourage you to really do some more research and see how relevant they are, and it's by no means a loss to go to from a science to geography, which also includes science within it. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
If I could just make a quick for maybe people who are the kind of English art side of things, our option on the Anthropocene, so on that historical period where the human impact on the environment is really kind of noticeable in the geological record. There's a lot of science, but also I know there's a session on science fiction novels as a way, a really interesting way in which a lot of people are really intrigued about thinking about different kind of future scenarios. So this is exactly the example of this really kind of wide range of things that you can do in geography, whether you're more on the arts side or as Nathan's been saying, your interest also is in the sciences.
And we talking about personal statements, I mean, we've touched upon them with like the application process. Is there any kind of key advice either of you would give on writing personal statements? There's been some questions on, are there any, I mean, I think sometimes as a student you feel there might be like a golden answer for a personal statement, and there's just not a golden answer, like everybody is completely individual. But to ask the question, do you have any advice on kind of extracurricular, or how students can narrow down, or just what might be good for them to include in their personal statements?
Should I go first?
Yeah, don't see that.
Brilliant. So about the personal statement, I think the best asset that you have, or the best thing to show, is your uniqueness, or it is called a personal statement. And I know it sounds cringy, but that is what sets you apart from everybody else. So avoid generic statements. I am passionate about geography, because I'm sure Gillian can agree that probably means nothing when you've got hundreds of applicants for very few places, right? And the other thing that Gillian also mentioned before was a lot of students feel intimidated that they might not have travel. Geography, one of the benefits is you get to travel a lot, right? And people think that you need to include that in your personal statement. But I can speak, I know a lot for low-income students in particular, who are potentially put off because of that reason. I just relied on books and literature, which you can buy for very, very cheap or get online for free, and just talk about the why, like why that sort of encouraged you to apply, or what particular aspect of geography that made you think about and why. If you can answer that, I don't see why you would be at a disadvantage to someone who had more travelling experiences, for example.
Super. Gillian, do you have anything to add to that?
No, just so I think follow the stuff that you're really interested in, even if it doesn't seem very geographical to you. That geography covers most stuff, and there is a few resources you might like to just browse through. So TEDx is a platform with an amazing range of kind of talks, from incredible people. Just browse through there, see if something catches you. The Royal Geographical Society has quite an interesting range of talks. An awful lot of them are, when I climbed up this mountain in, remote X, which is not particularly my kind of geography, but there's quite a wide range of sources there. There's also a great kind of online sort of news reporting website called The Conversation, which a lot of academics use to produce very sort of short accounts of their ongoing research and why it's relevant to contemporary sort of news items and so on. So just start looking around, and maybe you've got a favourite podcast or YouTube influencer or whoever it is that you're, just try to work through what it is that is distinctive and what most interests and motivates you. And I think then if you do that, you also kind of feel, well, if you don't get through, you haven't lost anything. You didn't try to be inauthentic, or you gave it you and it's you that's going to be working through the 3 years of actually really very hard work. Oxford is tough. We have 8-week terms and you work really hard, and a lot of people get involved in like Nathan's chairing the Climate Society, no less. That is a serious society. It gets globally renowned climate change speakers and activists and so on to come along. That's the kind of thing you can also do in Oxford, but it does make the terms pretty tough. So so again, put your passion into it, because that's what's going to get you through this extraordinary experience that I would hope Oxford can offer you.
Super. We haven't even really talked about that, Nathan, as well, which would be great to hear, like a really quick snippet about it. But we are coming up to our time as well. I know there are some questions which I'm sorry I haven't also got through. Some of them I know will be able to be answered on the other open day, and also information online, but I will also share all of your questions with Professor Gillian and also Nathan as well, so that they can always comment for particular ones that they feel they haven't managed to answer as well. So they haven't gone unanswered hopefully yet, so thank you very much for writing them. But Nathan, do you want to quickly tell us about the Oxford Climate Society, and then Gillian, could you tell us where students can get further information, and also about your exciting, or one of you can tell us about the exciting event which is also happening?
So much to squeeze into a few minutes, but but yeah, so essentially one of the, as Gillian was mentioning, one of the best things about Oxford is your ability to use the networks, use the platform that it gives you. And also some of the soft skills is probably one of the most valuable parts of the Oxford degree. So the tutorials, actually, learning to articulate myself and be confident enough to come onto something like this, is something that you don't realise you're being taught when you're in a tutorial. The tutors are always asking you, what do you think about this? Why do you think that? And then, yeah, like I said, without realising, I was able to articulate my ideas in the same way to events that I'd be doing with international and world-leading experts in climate change within the Climate Society. So I'd like to just draw that the interaction between what I learned in my geography degree and the tutorial specifically to what I'm doing with the society. And just I know we're short on time, but just so the Oxford Climate Society, like I said, it's one of the largest ones we societies within Oxford. We have an amazing term card that's all going online at the moment, so I'd implore all of you to watch that. I think, Ellie, you're going to be sharing the links to the YouTube channel. And we've also got a Climate 101 series called the School of Climate Change, which basically has 8 lectures with a very, very small group of students within Oxford, but also it's open up to everyone. And it basically takes you through everything you need to know within that 8 weeks about climate change. So I'd also encourage you to apply for that because it's online now. Pass over to Julian.
Cool. For more information, go to the Geography Department website. I should warn you, I am very aware that it is rather an old website and that we are planning a massive overhaul in the next few months. That does mean that looking at it on your phone is not the best way to approach it, I'm afraid. That it will be fine with the new version. Our old one is a bit clunky, so see if you can get a larger screen. But there's lots of information there about the application process, about what the interviews were like, about potential careers, much more about the programme and what you'll be taught and so on. So that's your one-stop shop. And then for more generally about Oxford, there's the university website as well. And I think, yeah, if we can, Nathan, I just wanted to take a minute or less actually, just to put the next slide up, please, Ellie, which is an event that's actually happening tomorrow. I'm not quite how we got them both sort of head to toe like this, but this is a sort of similar event talking particularly for BAME students. Our loss, we don't recruit that many Black and minority ethnic students to Oxford. I would love for that to change. Nathan and some of my other colleagues are participating in a meeting tomorrow to try and share the good news about geography and get to a slightly different audience than the one that we usually reach. Nathan, do you have a last word on that?
No, just that I'd encourage anyone to come along just to see what some of the BAME perspectives in the field. That's the name of the event. And yeah, just encourage you to come along.
Well, can I both thank you both so much? Time has flown by my end, and there's been so many questions. So thank you everybody for tuning in on time to be able to answer all those questions. So hopefully you found this really useful as well. So can I say a massive thank you from me and from everybody watching to Professor Gillian and also Nathan for joining us. And Nathan, very much good luck in your second year. I hope you enjoy picking the topics that you get to do, and also very exciting about the climate change panel that you're on as well for Oxford. So thank you both very much for coming on. And just a final notice from me on the just coming up next week. So next week we are joined by the University of Cambridge. If you are tossing between the two, we'll be there. But we're also going to be speaking afterwards. So we've got two next week. So one at 5 p.m. and one at 6:30. And we are going to be joined by UCL and actually talking about the humanitarian degree. So this is actually if you interested in geography but you want to maybe try something else. It's not a direct geography degree but has lots of links to geography and many other subjects. So that will be on at 6:30. And if you haven't already, there's the QR code down that way where you can scan and get the full lineup, because we're going to be busy every single Tuesday. So for me, and thank you very much everybody for saying thank you already. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of the week and we'll see you next Tuesday.